Good morning. My name is David Rayla. I'm the hearing officer for San Francisco Public Works. Kim Stevens is the clerk for this hearing. This hearing is being recorded and a sign-in sheet is on the table on the side of the room. Please be sure to sign in for our records and so that if necessary, we can contact you in the future regarding the item that you're here for. This public hearing is being held to consider 7 items. Order number, permit number, order number 201261, which includes 7 permits. 18WR0074, company's Modus Incorporated, and the address is 1801 McAllister Street. These are all for personal wireless service facility site permits. Pole antennas. Next is 16WR0123 for GTE MobileNet of California. The address is 1650 Baker Street. Permit number 18WR0105, same company, address 2200 Jackson Street, 2200 Jackson Street. Permit number 18WR0168, 67, GTA MobileNet for 2101 Pacific Avenue. Permit number 18WR0405. Externet Systems is the company and the address is 490 Edinburgh Street. 19WR00010, which company is Mobility, I want to say, LLC. Address is 501 Lake Street. And finally, last permit is 18WR0360. The company is Modus Incorporated. And the address is 604 Church Street. Is everybody here for the correct item? Yes? Okay. Nobody here is for trees or fines or... Okay, great. Sometimes it happens. Great. My job as the hearing officer is to gather the facts for the hearing items, listen to your testimonies, and help our Director of Public Works make determinations. I will not make any determination today. Instead, I will forward the findings from this hearing and make my recommendations to the director. The director will make the final determinations. When the director's determinations are made, the department will notify you of them. So the hearing will proceed as follows. I will ask Public Works Bureau of Street Use and Mapping permitting staff to speak first and describe how the item arrived at today's hearing. Is BSM agency here? Okay, thank you. Afterwards, I will take public comments/protests, including from those that submitted written comments to the department. Then I will allow the applicant to speak and answer any of the comments/protests. And then lastly, any agency, including Public Works, will be able to speak again. Each speaker will have up to 5 minutes to speak. The clerk will monitor the time for all speakers. When you hear the first bell, it will mean the speaker has 30 seconds left to speak. A louder second bell will signal that the time is up. Comments and questions should be addressed to me only, and not to the department or the protester/applicant. If you cannot finish your comment in time, you can submit a written testimony to me by the end of this hearing or by email as well. If I feel that a question is warranted, I will ask that question. After all comments are completed, I will close the item. We will now begin the hearing. May I have Public Works make this presentation, please? May I have your first and last name, please?
Good morning. My name is Leo Palacios, and I will give an overview of the wireless permitting process. The city has limited authority over personal wireless service facilities. Wireless facilities are regulated at the federal level with limited local control, allowing some oversight of design. All authority invested to the city regarding these facilities is restricted to Public Works Code Article 25, and Public Works Order 184504. The process includes review by San Francisco Public Works, the Planning Department, and the Health Department. If all departments recommend approval of the application, the city issues a tentative approval, and the applicant posts and mails this notice to any person owning property or living within 150 feet of the facility. There is a 20-day protest period, and if Public Works receives an objection to this notice, as we have for the applications on today's agenda, Public Works convenes a hearing. We have provided the hearing officer, the Planning Department, and the Health Department with all objections. Additionally, the applicant has responded to each protest. Public Works Code, Article 25, Section 1513H, which I have here, provide all available grounds that the city may lawfully use to deny a personal wireless service facility permit. The first ground is if the Health Department incorrectly determined that the application meet Article 25's health compliance standard. This would mean that the facility would not comply with the Federal Communication Commission's emissions guideline. The second ground is if the Planning Department incorrectly determined that the application meets the tier compatibility standards. This would mean that the facility would significantly detract from the defining characteristics of the adjacent neighborhood. The third ground doesn't apply to today's application since none of them are proposed adjacent to a park or open space. The fourth and fifth grounds is if Article 25's requirement for obtaining a wireless permit are not being fulfilled, or that there is a proposed modification to the design and that modification would not comply with Article 25 standards. For all the applications on today's agenda, we believe that tentative approval was issued correctly. The Health Department found that all applications meet Article 25's health standard, and under federal law, the city cannot deny an application for emissions concerns if the facility is found to meet FCC guidelines. Additionally, the Planning Department found that all applications meet the tier standards and will not significantly detract from the defining characteristics of the adjacent neighborhoods. Finally, there is no evidence in Public Works possession that demonstrate that these applications will not comply with Article 25 and Order 184504 standards and requirements. Finally, Public Works has noticed that the majority of the protests filed for these applications centered around health concerns. So we wanted to briefly add in some comments about the inspection and enforcement of wireless facilities. If Public Works decides to approve these permits and the applicants install the facility, within 30 business days of completing installation, the applicant would need to file a verified statement from a registered professional engineer that the installed facility comply with the public health compliance standard. We will be here if you have any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So this presentation that you just gave, as I understand it, is meant to be applicable to all items on the agenda today?
That is correct.
Okay. Do you have anything specific to say about 1801 McAllister Street?
No.
Not at this point. Okay, thank you. Very well. Is there anyone here from the public for 1801 McAllister Street? Would you like to speak? Hello. May I have your first and last name, please?
Hello, my name is Stephanie Zooks, and I have a degree in biology, and I'm a registered veterinary technician here in San Francisco. My background in science and medicine is the basis behind my protest of permit 18WR0074 at 1801 McAllister, which is going up outside of my house. The exposure limits furnished by the applicant says they are 0.063% of the FCC public exposure standard, which sounds safe enough. The problem with RF exposure is that its effects are cumulative over time. Symptoms experienced by people living near cell towers include fatigue, sleep disturbance, headaches, difficulty concentrating, depression, memory loss, visual disruptions, hearing disruptions, skin problems, cardiovascular issues, dizziness, movement difficulties, and nausea. In 2018, researchers with the Ramazzini Institute in Italy announced that a large-scale lifetime study of lab animals exposed to environmental levels of cell tower radiation developed cancer. All of these exposures used in the Ramazzini study were below the US FCC permissible exposures, and cancers occurred with these legally permitted levels. This study raises concerns that simply living close to a cell tower will pose a threat to human health. Cell towers should not be near schools, hospitals, or homes. San Francisco's plans to cover the city with these small cell antennae will continuously expose everyone living nearby and walking down the street. The increased exposures will increase the risk of cancer and other diseases, as well as increase electrohypersensitivity. Another concern is that the RF emissions coming from the antennae will not match the RF emissions on paper. Will there be annual inspections on each of these antennae to ensure that they are emitting at the safe levels they specified? Also, will these antennae be capable of carrying the 5G signal? 5G has not been subjected to any form of safety studies whatsoever, according to the FCC itself. It appears that we are the guinea pigs in this small cell, close to the population wireless experiment. This whole project is unethical. I do not consent to this assault to my health and safety and to the health and safety of all living beings, humans, plants, animals, and insects that reside in San Francisco. Will there be any recourse down the road when we all start getting sick?
Thank you. Anybody else from the public for this item? Permit number 18WR0074. If not, then may I have the applicant, please, or the applicant representative? Hi.
Hi, good morning. My name is Laurel Ferguson, and I am a consultant who aids in the filing and permitting process of AT&T's proposed wireless service sites throughout the city of San Francisco. And like was said before, AT&T has to comply with rigorous standards, including the FCC, the Department of Public Health, and Planning. And we agree with the determination that the city has approving our application. Like the protester said, we are well below the FCC limit, and because of that, we have an approval from the Department of Public Health that we believe was accurately provided to us. But if the concern is still great, we are happy to provide a post-install in residence measurement for the resident that has concerns, and that way, after the facility is installed, we will come by, not us, a third party will go to their residence and take measurements, both inside and outside of their building. Do you have any questions for me today?
Just curious on what your what is position about the cumulative effects that the protester mentioned?
I believe the cumulative effects are captured through a 5-year plan that all carriers provide to the city of San Francisco, and they're taken into effect.
5-year plan, huh? So, you already addressed the concern of whether these numbers submitted with the application are actually effective, real world number. So I'm glad that you're gonna follow up with the measurement. Would the protester be able to say contact you a year down the line to make an additional measurement, or?
I would need to speak with the Department of Public Works staff to ensure that I have the correct process in place between contacting myself or AT&T or you in order to schedule that. But it is something that we've done in the past, and we are happy to do.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I have a... is there anybody else on the side of the applicant? Any agency, including Public Works? May I have a BSM? Just have a couple questions. So this 5-year plan that the applicant, consultant, representative mentioned, she mentioned that these cumulative effects are captured in this 5-year plan. Could you elucidate on that?
I'm not familiar with the 5-year plan she's referring to. It might be more something regarding to the Department of Public Health. But the Department of Public Health does take in cumulative effects of RF emissions. They're not here right now, but this is a part of what they put in when they submit their determination to us.
Okay, so it is accounted for. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I will check.
Excuse me.
Yes. Oh.
Cammie Blackstone from AT&T. I just want to make a clarification. The 5-year plan is actually submitted to the planning department, so that's why Public Works is not as aware of it as he would be. But we do that every couple of years. We update the 5-year plan.
Okay. Okay. It is not location specific. Is it is not location specific? Is it general plan? General
It's
5-year
it's a
plan?
plan that we need to let the city know where we are planning on installing our antennas
Okay.
so that they can have an idea of where everybody is going.
Okay. I'll look into this. Thank you. Okay, does anybody have any other comment in regard to this particular item? Very well. I'll move to the next item then. 16 WR 0123 for 2200 Jackson Street. Is there anybody here for Jackson Street? Oh, my bad. Yes, you're right. I just read one line below. 0123, I think I got that right, by 1650 Baker Street. And I'm guessing you're here for Baker Street. Yes, we all are. Great. So may I have a PSM just state? Do you have any particular
Leo
comment?
Palacios. My previous brief covered all applications.
Okay.
No new comments to add for this one.
Yeah, thank you. Bear with me. I'm going to have to ask you for every item, just to make sure. In that case, may I have the first commenter / protester?
Yes, hi.
Hi.
My name is Ankur Luthra. I live at what used to be 1661 Baker, now 2901 Pine at the corner of Pine and Baker. And my wife, who's a neurologist, studies brain disease for a living, and my 1-year-old daughter. There's a big change that happened in April 2019. I know the Department of Public Works said they don't have much grounds to fight because of a federal law at point number 1 on his sheet, and number 2, if it fits in the character of the neighborhood. In April 2019, lucky for us as residents, this was a mere 60 days ago, the California Supreme Court voted 7-0. This is not a local, this is the California Supreme Court, voted 7-0 unanimous that cities now have complete authority to decide whether unsightly installations incommode or disturb the use of the street. Now, AT&T, in this case T-Mobile, fought back and said, hey, we don't block traffic. And the Justice Corrigan of the California Supreme Court said very clearly, and I quote, "The power to regulate the location and manner of installation is generally a matter left to local regulation. Travel is not the sole use of the street." So when a telco says our thing is out of the way, it's not blocking traffic, in the words of Justice Corrigan, travel is not the sole use of the street. And installations that disturb the street, local has a 7-0 unanimous authority. The city of San Francisco, these guys right here, have unanimous authority that they can't, the federal level doesn't apply. In this case, the cell installation of 1650 Baker Street, without question, incommodes the use of Baker Street. It disturbs the tenant living who lives within feet of the installation. Alan, who's here today and can show you a picture where he can practically use a broomstick and hit this thing, right outside his window. So it certainly disturbs his use. I'm not talking health here. Let's get away from health, and we're going to go through all that. We're going to have debate on the health. Like I said, I'm happy to bring in my UCSF wife neurologist to tell you about the health stuff, but let's get away from that. It disturbs the tenant. Number 2, it completely is not in character with our neighborhood. Our street is very regulated, certain height buildings. This tower would literally be above everything in the neighborhood. other than, of course, the trees, which is Mother Nature and that. But the buildings themselves have been regulated to be a certain height. Now, if you go up a block, you have, California and Baker. You have a huge tall building at that corner. You go across California Street, heck, you go down Pine Street towards Nob Hill, you have taller buildings. Our particular street is designed with 100-plus-year-old Victorians that are relatively short in height. And this goes above, it's almost like its own mini skyscraper that goes above everything else. And again, going by the California Supreme Court, something like that incommodes the use of the public road. Kids playing in the street, walking around, have this one thing that towers above the rest of the street. If our street had nothing but 10-story buildings and this thing was its current proposed height, I wouldn't even be here today. But that's not the case. It disturbs the look and the feel of the neighborhood. It adds height. It has a tall, unsightly object on top of an already unsightly pole. And it simply does not fit the character of the neighborhood. It completely clashes with the look and feel of the neighborhood. So again, I believe there's a need for small cells in our city. I believe there's a need for 5G. But again, in the words of the California Supreme Court, not above all else. So I urge you to not allow this. In certain parts of the city, I think it's fine. But in our neighborhood, again, it without question incommodes the use of Baker Street, and the Supreme Court themselves said unanimously that means the city has the right to follow the voice of the people living in that neighborhood and deny the permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Please no clapping. May we have the next commenter, please?
My name is Alan Nielsen, and I live right outside of the pole where the 1650 Baker is. I can't understand how this even got close to this permit process. I can literally almost reach out and grab the pole. I have a picture here. I don't know how this works, but this is my living room window, and it goes way up, even above. My windows are tall. I have 3 windows that are just like this in my dining room, my living room, and my kitchen. All of these are right out within 12 feet of the pole. We do have health issues in the house. My spouse has cancer, and I have had heart surgery, but I understand that that's not the big thing. But here's another picture of what we're gonna have to look at when they put all of the equipment up. It's right on that pole that I have to look right out at the window at. I've lived in that neighborhood for over 30 years. It's a beautiful tree-lined street. I don't understand why they're gonna put this right. I mean, my TV's further away from my sofa than this pole is. My dining room table is further away from my stove than this pole is. And I just think about the people that live in Hinckley, California, when PG&E told them, don't worry about the water, it's fine, it's safe. And then we find out 5 years later, uh-oh. But we let Verizon put this 5G tower in there. I don't feel comfortable with it at all, and I'm gonna submit some other things in writing for you with pictures and everything else. But it's right outside my window. And I can't believe that they would allow that. So thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to submit it to me now?
Yes, I can.
Here,
I didn't realize to give it to you. I'm sorry.
okay, sure. We can do that both at once. In the meanwhile, may I have the next commenter, please? Thanks. Okay.
My name is Karen Duggan, and I live at 1644 Baker Street. So I would like to thank Mr. Palacios, because I know we all have concerns about the health issue, but apparently the city doesn't have any authority to deal with that. So I'm going to skip to what our neighbor just spoke about and the effect that it's going to have on our neighborhood in terms of aesthetics. I am going to give this to you. This is outside of my bedroom window, and that's the pole where the equipment will be placed. I also I'm not going to repeat everybody else, but I have some questions regarding the other permits that were pulled that are on your list. I actually have photos of those other locations, and they seem to be significantly different from our location on Baker Street. So I'm going to submit those as well.
Different in what respect?
Pardon me?
Different in what? In which respect?
Well, you can't really tell because we weren't given the specifics on the other locations, so I just drove by them and took pictures. And they're really much taller buildings in all of these locations, or they're commercial locations. So I don't know how we fit in with those. But it's certainly a question. And my other question would be to you is that I didn't see AT&T's name anywhere on this permit approval. Is that because Modus is representing them? Yes?
Oh, I know. I don't know. I have to ask. I'm assuming so. I am gonna ask that question.
Okay. I was just wondering why a spokesperson from AT&T was here.
Ours is Verizon. Our neighborhood was Verizon.
No, I know, but why did AT&T speak?
We use consultants
Okay.
oftentimes, a lot of the carriers do.
Okay, okay. Thank you. May I give these to you?
Of course. All right. Do we have someone else?
Hi, yes.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Shu Young. I'm here with my daughter, a 9-year-old here. My family and I live across from the proposed Verizon wireless facility. We oppose the project on the grounds of aesthetics and health concerns. The wireless facility incommodes the aesthetics of our neighborhood and street. Our street, as mentioned by my neighbors here, is lined with historical Victorian homes. Our wireless tower is contrary to and disruptive of the historical and residential feel of the neighborhood. I'd like to show you some of the photos of our neighborhood. All of these homes were built around late 1800s, early 1900s, and actually sort of exemplifies the architectural style at the time. It is unacceptable that only after the antenna is installed that Verizon must prove that they're in compliance with the EBI consulting report and FCC guidelines. We would like to see real and actual data on radio frequency emissions from current antennas that are running at full capacity with the same model as that being proposed at 1650 Baker Street. The model in question is Amphenol CUU T070X12F. There has been a body of evidence from independent studies worldwide indicating that radio frequency radiation from cell phones and wireless equipment cause cancer. In Ripon, California, a 4G cell tower was installed at an elementary school. Although the telecoms company cited independent tests showing that the tower met safety standards, 4 students and 3 teachers were diagnosed with cancer within a 3-year period. And as a reminder, on April 4th, 2019, the California Supreme Court upheld power of local jurisdictions to regulate utilities beyond the basis of aesthetics. This allows and confirms local regulatory discretion to relocate or abandon the Verizon project, as the project would incommode public use of the road. Creating negative health consequences and safety concerns for residents could by definition disturb public road use or disturb its quiet enjoyment. Our street, Baker Street, is a residential area with elderly adults, adults with compromised immune systems, young children, pets, and women of childbearing age. We must prevent the residents along our street from meeting a similar fate as those in Ripon, California. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I believe that's all for Baker Street. May I have the applicant next? Representative.
Good morning, Melanie Sengupta, outside counsel for Verizon Wireless. I just want to clarify a few points. One is that GTE MobileNet is Verizon. That's the proper business entity name, and I believe that was on the application. Modus filed it on behalf of GTE MobileNet. The previous site was an AT&T application, which Modus had submitted as well, and that's why both Modus and AT&T spoke to that site. This is a part of a longstanding program in San Francisco. Verizon and other carriers have worked with San Francisco's Planning Department, Public Works, DPH, Department of Technology, PUC, the Historical Preservation Commission, and other city agencies to come up with the designs here. There are two main issues that the protesters have brought up here. The first is with respect to radio frequency emissions. And as you've heard, the FCC has primary jurisdiction over emissions. But I do want to clarify a few misconceptions that have been voiced here. First off, this is a 4G, not a 5G facility that is proposed for this site. The FCC works with the EPA, FDA, the National Institutes of Health, and other federal agencies to set the exposure limits. These exposure limits are source neutral, meaning the exposure levels deal with what is being emitted, not what the source is, be it 3G, 4G, 5G, a microwave, a cell phone, whatever the source is. And the exposure levels are set for continuous exposure. So the city's job here is to ensure that the facilities comply with FCC standards. The way that Article 25 addresses that is that it requires the carriers to employ a third-party RF engineer to calculate what those emissions would be. Here, Verizon and Modus hired Hammett and Edison. We have Daniel Rowe sitting in the back of the room who can answer any RF-specific questions. DPH's own RF engineers then review that report and submit a determination to DPH for their consideration when determining whether or not to grant this permit. In this instance, for this particular site, the calculated exposure levels are 0.53% of the FCC's limit at the building that is closest to it, and 0.33% of the FCC exposure limit. So these are just a fraction of what the FCC's exposure limits are. DPH has also attached a condition to the permit that requires Verizon to do post-installation testing. So that testing is done. That's real-life testing. The neighbors are welcome to go out there when that's done and read the meter, and then they submit a report to DPH and DPW as to what those results are. With respect to aesthetics, which are the other issues that have been raised here, the planning department also reviews each of these sites under Article 25. And as a clarification, the Supreme Court decision to which the protesters are referring, the subject matter of that case was a challenge of San Francisco's Article 25, and the Supreme Court upheld San Francisco's Article 25 and said, yes, San Francisco, this falls within the purview of federal and state law for your review to encompass this. What Article 25 says is that the planning department determines whether this site is in a zoning or planning protected area, and then there are different standards that are laid out for aesthetics. Here, this is in a zoning protected location. It's not in a planning protected location. And so the planning department reviewed the photo sims and the other materials that were submitted here to determine whether this falls within the character of the neighborhood. And the planning department here said, yes, it does. One of the protesters mentioned that this site looks different from other sites. I haven't looked at all of the other sites on the agenda. I do know the other two Verizon sites that are on the agenda. Those are located on streetlight poles versus this is on a utility pole. And so utility poles are regulated by many authorities, the California PUC, the PG&E, the Joint Pole Authority, and so the height of this pole, when you add the antenna on there, is regulated by the PUC. And so because of PUC General Order 95, Rule 94, there has to be this extension of 10 feet, so it's above the transmission lines. Verizon has also looked at other poles within the area, and I'd like to call up Agatha Cajedas with Modus to talk about the other poles in the neighborhood that Verizon analyzed.
1 second, please.
Good morning. My name is Agatha Cajedas. I'm with Modus, which is an authorized agent for Verizon Wireless. So when we're looking for a pole, Verizon network engineers identify an area of need for improved service and reaches out to our company with a small radius in which to locate the least intrusive location for a new facility. In this way, we are constrained to a limited area as determined by Verizon engineers. As part of our due diligence, we evaluated alternative locations within that immediate vicinity and determined that this location is the least intrusive means of providing the solution to meet the engineering needs of the network. So when we evaluate alternatives, some disqualifying characteristics include PG&E regulations, California Public Utilities Commission's GO 95 regulations, potential tree abatement, existing infrastructure as if SFMTA infrastructure, and other various disqualifiers. So on this block face, you can see the target pole on the top right. Unfortunately, there's not many other solutions on this block. There's not many poles across the street. The 4 poles that are at the ends of the block have SFMTA infrastructure already present, so we are barred from utilizing those facilities. And we have a pole on the same side of the street that's also a PG&E pole, but we are barred from using that pole because of a PG&E stipulation called the curb rule, the distance from a driveway. And then we have another solution that's just in the middle of trees, so that would require major tree abatement. So if you have any other questions for me, I'm available.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, you guys, I'll get you in a second. Is there anybody else on the side of the applicant that wish to speak at this moment? Very well. Do we have any public comment? Please. Sorry. I'm going to have someone at the microphone up here. And for this second round, you have 1 minute.
1 minute, okay. So Agatha came up and explained why on this block, this was the best option, as if this is the only block in the entire city where you could install a cell tower. There is another option, which is not have it on this block. She explained very well why every other option on the block doesn't work. And we explained very well why the option they picked incommodes the use of the street. So our view is, she explained as if this block must be used and why we have to go there. Notice, by the way, they deflected away from the height issue, which is, she said, oh, well, it has to be 10 feet above this tower because of tower regulation, which proves our exact point. It goes way above every other house in the neighborhood, and they explain why, because of what their hands are tied. They want to install it here, so we have to do that. Well, guess what? If you have to do that, you can't put it on this block because it incommodes the use of the street. So our question is, why this magical block, A, and if there are no other options, then use another block. They talked about the signal going 200 to 320 degrees that can go many, many blocks, which proves that it need not be placed on this block to have help on the entire Baker Street corridor. They can go up 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks or down 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks. I think they, in fact, proved our point and our concern. And I think Karen may have a comment as well.
That was my comment. Thank you.
Okay, great. Any other follow-up? Yes. 1 minute, please.
I live in a beautiful Victorian building, and I have beautiful windows that look up into the sky. And with this proposed thing, this is what I'm going to be looking at every day out the top of my beautiful windows that aren't there right now. So this height issue, and when I talked to the guys that were coming out to permit it, they all said there was no way they were going to be able to put it on that pole because it was too close to the wires. Well, now they're just raising it way up above it, so I have to look out my beautiful windows at this pole. I don't understand.
Thank you. Yes, applicant might want to have a chance to do the rebut. No, yes, you are the applicant. Sorry. Yes.
Sorry, one thing I ran out of time to explain before as well is that...
Sorry, 1 minute.
Sure. Is that in DPW has adopted a companion order to Article 25 DPW Order Number 184504, and Section 2 B39 defines what substantially obstruct views or block light means, and the facility here complies with that definition. That's what planning found. And also, Article 25 does not protect private views. With respect to why does it need to be on this block, I've heard some people refer to this as a cell tower. It's actually not a cell tower. It's a small cell, meaning that its range is small, and therefore the flexibility of moving it down 3 blocks or 7 blocks isn't there because it's meant to serve a smaller area. And with that, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. I have BSM.
Hello.
Hi. May I have your first and last name?
Leo Palacios.
Thank you. So relatively speaking, this is one of the more discussed item in the agenda. So I want to spend a little bit more time on here. I think it will help. It will help with the other permits as well. So one concern, I'm going to start with the easy ones. One concern here was the distance of the pole, or the distance of the antenna, really, to the adjacent window or building or room. You know, so do you have a number for the minimum distance that this pole has to be or can be?
Yeah. So minimum distance regarding health or minimum distance regarding aesthetics, planning, blocking of view?
Basically, how far this antenna has to be, as a minimum, from an inhabited dwelling.
So in the order, there really isn't we don't have a minimum. They just have to choose the pole, and then we wouldn't see if that pole follows Article 25 standards. I know there's a distance for substantially obstruct view, and I think Department of Public Health has their own distance in regards of safety, health concerns, or public safety. But the health and the planning department has reviewed, the location distance of this, and they gave their determination of approval with conditions.
Okay. The applicant also mentioned that Verizon, or its parent company,
Yes.
is required to perform post-installation measurements.
Yes.
So that's something.
Yes, they are required to do a post installation RF report. And the reason for that is because, once they do the installation of the equipment, we want to make sure that new equipment that they proposed or the equipment that they proposed in the application reads what they propose, right? Is it still reading like a fraction of what the FCC emission, the allowable emission for the public? Does it say that? Or is it going to be a public safety hazard? Because if it's, for example, if the reading is completely different and it's actually above the public health safety standards, then they have to fix that.
Okay. So this measurement will have to be representative of, a substantial operation of this antenna, not when there's no data coming or, when it's low powered or something?
Yeah, no, they do.
It has to be, okay.
Yeah, and
Full range, right?
that's correct.
That's what I'm looking
And if the public wishes to also get a measurement of it, Department of Public Health did put a condition on their approval saying if any member of the general public wishes for a reading of the equipment, that the applicant should have in play a process to do that. And if for whatever reason the applicant can't get in touch with the concerned citizen, then they could call us, and we would get the Department of Public Health to get involved, and they would also do the reading also.
Okay, so you'll be the liaison, right?
Yes.
The middle, the middle person. Okay. So I've been exposed now to two different point of view from regarding the California Supreme Court
Yes.
judgment that I also read. It's legalese, so I don't understand too much going into it. But how does it affect this whole process?
The decision of the Supreme, or of the California Supreme Court, well, that affects us because now we could still impose Article 25. So it's pretty much that whole, court decision is to back us up, the city, so that if, we couldn't give design aesthetics, so the planning department has more control of the design of the equipment being proposed. If that wasn't the case, then there would be a lot of different designs for these small cell facilities, which is what we don't want, and planning does not want. We want to see the design and want to make sure it fits the aesthetics of the neighborhood. Planning does.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I have the applicant back up for a second? Just want to ask one quick question, then we can move to the next. So this is again the measurements, post-installation measurements. Would the applicant be amenable to make a measurement inside someone's dwelling?
Absolutely. If they request it and they give us access, then we're happy to take measurements from their dining room or bedroom or whatever they're requesting, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Very well. Any other public agency wishing to speak on this item? If not, I will close this item and move to the next. Thank you. And that will be 18WR0167. Again, the company is GTA Mobilnet of California, and the address is 2101 Pacific Avenue. Is anybody here for Pacific Avenue? For 21101? Okay. May I have BSM come to the podium and
Leo Palacios, no added comments for this one.
thank you. And may I have any public comment, even though I just asked? Okay. May I have the applicant next?
We rest on our prior comments for the prior site. The only difference here is that this is a light standard, and so this is the inverted, wine bottle design that goes on top of the light standard, so it's shorter and more diminutive.
Okay, so there isn't more exposure
No.
or more energy
No,
or
no,
more
no,
emissions? Okay.
no.
Okay, just give me a second here. Any public from any comment from any public agency? Very well. Now we close this item particular. I will review the written comments. Move to the next one, 18WR0405. Company is Externet Systems, and the address is 490 Edinburgh Street. Is anybody here from Edinburgh Street?
Sorry, sir, I think you skipped
I just skipped one again?
2101
Oh, no.
Pacific Avenue.
Damn it. Sorry about that. How do I keep? How do I keep doing that?
Okay, so then 2101 Pacific Avenue.
No, sorry. I was wondering myself, how do I keep doing that? So I have not called 22 Jackson, right? I did? Well, you know what? Let me just fix this right now. Let's go make them be sure that we're talking about 2200 Jackson Street, and who's here for 2200 Jackson Street? Okay, so 2101 Pacific Avenue. That is the next one. Am I right? Okay, thanks, Kimmy. And nobody was here, and then, okay, so that one is closed. And the next one is 490 Edinburgh Street. Okay. Very well. May I have BSM make his statement, please?
Hello, Leo Palacios. No new comments for this.
Okay. Any public comment for this address? 490 Edinburgh Street. Okay. May I have the applicant then? Thanks.
Hi, good morning. Joe Kamisha with Extenet Systems. Just wanted to highlight a couple of things with this particular application. We actually did have a couple of little hiccups during the process, so I just want to come clean about exactly what happened, explain what we did, explain what DPW did, because part of the notification process was, the protesters commented on notification being inadequate, and I wanted to explain how we believe it was. So we received the tentative approval on March 13th. We mailed the notices on March 19th and posted them on March 21st. A few days later, DPW commented that there appeared to be a page missing from our mailing affidavit. So we reviewed both the affidavit itself and the mailing job itself, meaning we double-checked that the notices were actually sent to all the people that they should have been sent to. We confirmed that they had been, and that the error was simply that we failed to include one page of the affidavit. So we found the page that was missed, we re-uploaded the affidavit on April 2nd, and DPW confirmed that we were good to go from there. So the protest period didn't technically start until April 2nd, because that was when we finalized all of our documentation. So I just wanted to clarify that. There were some folks that said mailing wasn't adequate or posting wasn't adequate. It was. There was a little hiccup, and it was just a clerical error that we fixed, and we moved on. Later, a few days later, there was a comment from a neighbor that said one of the notices had been torn down. So DPW asked us to go out in the field and repost the notices, which we did, and then we re-uploaded proof that had been done on April 10th. So again, there was no lack of posting. In fact, if anything, we actually posted twice. And during that period, we received a total of 10 responses, one of which was actually in support of the project. The other 9 had various comments ranging from what they perceived to be a lack of notification, which I just walked through a little bit. Many of the comments had to do with radio frequency emissions, which you've heard a lot about this morning. I'll just highlight a couple of quick points. In this case, the Hammett and Edison analysis concluded that the point of highest exposure that would result from this installation would be about 6% of the maximum permissible exposure limit. And that's at a building about 25 feet away. At grade, anywhere on the ground, the maximum exposure limit was about 1.1% of the FCC's limit. So well within the FCC's approval limit, fractions of the maximum exposure levels that are allowed. And again, Department of Public Health did review and approve all of this in their January 9th approval. Finally, there were a few comments about visual impacts. Again, you've heard some of this already this morning, so I'll just go through briefly what we saw in the protests and how we responded to each. The first is, the question comes up often, I'm sure you've heard this many times, is why here? Again, in this case, this is a T-Mobile application. They are trying to fill a gap in coverage along Edinburgh Street. They are very small, they're small cells, low-powered sites, and the coverage areas, the coverage footprints are very small and targeted. So they're trying to cover this block of Edinburgh between Persia and Brazil. So the area within which we have to search is relatively small, and the coverage objective is relatively small. Within this area, there are no commercial or industrial areas. There are no commercial or industrial buildings. It's entirely a residential area. Furthermore, it's entirely wooden poles. There are no light standards that we could use. As Melanie Sengupta mentioned, you have the little inverted wine bottle design, which is a little bit of a sleeker design that we prefer to use where possible. Those aren't possible because they simply don't exist in the neighborhood. So all we have to work on are the wooden utility poles. And within this neighborhood, all the wooden utility poles are essentially the same. Some have more stuff on them than others, which might make them less viable candidates for us, just because there simply isn't room. So we chose the pole that was best suited, both from a locational standpoint to achieve coverage objectives, and from a standpoint of being a sufficient distance away from adjacent residences. And again, this particular pole is about 13 feet away, which is pretty consistent along this block. Finally, we had one comment that noted that it was near a public park. The Excelsior Playground is about 300 feet to the southwest down Edinburgh. We actually looked in that area as well, and it seems the feelings are mixed about whether poles like that should be good candidates for installations like this that are near parks or not. In one case, they're further away from homes, which I think some people would like. In some cases, they're closer to public parks where they'd prefer not to see things like that. So in this case, we are about half a block away from the park. And again, the primary concern with being near the park had to do with emissions concerns, which, again, were well within the FCC standards. DPH has reviewed and approved. So concluding, we believe that the Planning Department and Department of Public Health made their approval determinations correctly, and we respectfully request that you uphold the department's approval, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Okay, any public agency comment? Okay. In that case, I will close this item, since there are no public comments at all, and move on to the next, which is 19 WR 0010 Mobility LLC is the company. The address is 501 Lake Street. Is there anybody here for the address from the public? Okay. May I have PSM make a statement?
No new comments to add for this application.
Thank you. May I have, again, public comments? Then the applicant, please.
Good morning. Luis Martinez with Mobility. And we applied for the personal wireless facility site permit under Tier B. Tier B is defined in Article 25 and Public Works Order 184504, where the proposed location for the facility is in a planning or zoning protected location. After review, the planning department has determined that our application meets the Tier B compatibility standards. This signifies that our proposed location would not significantly detract from the defining characteristics of the planning or zoning protected location. Additionally, before we applied anything, we have to get CEQA categorical exemption, so there was no historical impact. The pool license from the PUC. As well, when we apply, we submit radio frequency reports done by a third party. Our protest was mainly a health concern. We have Daniel Rowe from Hammond Edison who did our RF report and the noise study. So if there's any questions with regards to health, you can follow up with him.
Thank you. Just one question. The CEQA exception.
Yes.
Maybe I should ask BSM really, but that was a requirement for your permit?
So before you apply, right, you have to get a CEQA clearance. So here's a copy of that.
Okay.
The planning department determined that there's no historical impact in that area.
Thanks.
And then just to further there, the planning determination, and right here, the proposed personal wireless service facility is on balance and consistent with Article 25, and the Department of Public Health findings that says everything's okay from a FCC, that we meet the FCC standards.
Okay. Thanks. can I ask PSM to step up for a question?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Leo Palacios.
Hi. I'm just gonna bounce that question back
Yes.
to you. Is the CEQA exception something that is required for every permit of this nature?
Yes, there are 12 application requirements for an applicant to submit an application for a personal wildlife service facility. And under Order 184504, Section 5E, they have to submit proof that the planning department has completed the review of its application under CEQA. So that is one of the requirements, which all
Okay.
applications have done.
Okay. Thank you. I'm guessing you don't have any comment? Okay, other than, okay, thank you. Very well. With that, I would then move to the next and final item, and that's permit number 18 WR0360. The company's Modus Incorporated, and the address is 604 Church Street. May I have BSM make a statement, please?
Hello. No new updates.
Thank you. May I have the public, any public commenter for this address, protester, for 604 Church Street? None? Yes.
I submitted photos of the other locations, and 604 Church Street, according to my photo, is a single-family home surrounded by two
Yeah.
higher buildings.
Sorry, ma'am. Are you going to speak for 604 Church Street? Is
I live next to 604 Church Street. I'm just asking a question.
okay?
Anybody wants to respond?
Because I need to have everything recorded here in the microphone. You're kind of too far. So if you'd like to step up to this podium and may I have your first and last name for the record?
Karen Duggan.
Thank you.
So that's one photo of 604 Church Street. That's the gate to the entrance. And that's the building itself.
Okay.
So my question is, this is looks like a single-family home with higher buildings on either side of it, so I don't understand why a tower would be there.
Okay. That is a legitimate question. Let's see. Any other from the side of the public wishes to speak on this item?
Can I ask a question about parking?
I'm sorry, but that item has been passed. Feel free to send us, the department, or me specifically, any new material that you might have.
Verbally, so we can write it down.
But by the end of the hearing, I'll give out the information. So going back to 604 Church Street, since there are no any public comment, may I have the applicant then?
Hi, my name is Laurel Ferguson. I'm a consultant who aids in the filing and permitting of new cell facilities in the city of San Francisco. So I believe a part of the confusion for 604 Church Street is that these facilities, because they're in the public right-of-way, don't actually have addresses, so we use the nearest parcel number. So for 604 Church Street, it's an entire parcel. And it's in fact in front of a mixed-use building. I believe it's a cafe on the lower level, and then a residential on the middle and top floor. Where she saw the 604 lattice, I believe, is kind of shielded from view. And it's kind of behind that white truck there, so
Could
I
you
can
point
see
it with your finger, please? Okay.
That's where that gate entrance is. So perhaps, I don't know, that might be where the residences enter the building. But where our facility is, as you can see, is nearer to the intersection.
Okay. I see where the confusion might have arisen.
Yeah,
Right.
it can be quite confusing.
Okay.
Regardless, I wanted to just state that we have completed all of the requirements for our permit, and it's been reviewed by Planning, the Department of Public Health, and the Department of Public Works, and all agencies has provided their approval, and we filed our tentative approval with the city. Do you have any questions?
No, at this moment, is there any? Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any comment from public agency? An additional comment from the public for this item? Yes, ma'am. 1 minute, please. And may I have your first and last name again?
Karen Duggan, one last comment on Church Street that also goes to other comments about the difference between 1650 Baker Street and other properties that are being permitted or attempted to be permitted. That's directly across the street from 604 Church Street or the corner that was shown earlier. Thank you.
Okay. Would the applicant have any? Okay. In that case, I will close this item, and with that, this hearing. Thank you. I'm sorry. Oh, yes. Sorry. Before I close the recording, my email address is david.reyla, R-E-Y-L-A, @sfdpw.org. Yes, of course. I can even write it down. How about that? Okay,
Thank you.
that sounds easier. Okay, thank you so much for participating.